The knock came like a bruise, soft at first, then harder, more certain, until it forced its way into Lena Morrison's sleep. She sat upright before she was fully awake, heart sprinting ahead of her thoughts. The digital clock glowed 2:17 a.m. in a pale, accusatory blue. There were rules about knocks at that hour. Nothing good ever arrived after 2. She listened. The radiator hissed. A car passed somewhere far below, tires whispering against wet pavement. Then the knock again, 3 measured taps, polite enough to suggest restraint, urgent enough to feel rehearsed. Lena swung her legs out of bed, the floor cold against her bare feet. She reached for her robe, then stopped. For a second, only a second, she waited for her phone to vibrate, for a message from her daughter that would make this moment harmless. "Mom, sorry, forgot my keys." Or "I'm outside, don't freak out." Nothing. She moved down the narrow hallway of her Queens apartment, every step deliberate, as if haste might shatter something fragile in the air. At the door, she peered through the peephole. 2 men stood in the dim hallway light, their coats dark, their expressions already set into something that had weight. Lena opened the door. "Ms. Morrison?" the taller man asked. He did not smile. "Yes. I'm Detective Harris. This is Detective Collins." He paused, glanced past her shoulder into the apartment, then back at her. "May we come in?" Lena stepped aside because that was what people did when asked by men who carried the quiet authority of the law. The detectives entered, the hallway suddenly smaller, their presence compressing the air. Harris looked around, taking in the neatness, the framed photographs, graduations, birthdays, a beach trip from years ago. Collins remained by the door, hands folded, as if prepared to leave at any moment. "What's this about?" Lena asked. Her voice surprised her. It sounded steady. Harris did not answer immediately. He gestured toward the kitchen table. "Could we sit?" She nodded. They sat. The chair legs scraped the tile with a sound too loud for the hour. "Ms. Morrison," Harris said carefully, "when was the last time you spoke with your daughter, Emily?" The question slid into her like a blade. "Yesterday morning," she replied. "She was late for work. She said she'd call me after her shift." "And did she?" "No," Lena frowned. "She's 24. She doesn't always call when she says she will." Harris folded his hands. "Has Emily been missing before?" "No." "Had she been staying anywhere other than her apartment recently?" Lena hesitated. A name rose in her mind, uninvited. "She's been spending time with a friend. Nora Blake. They've known each other since college." Collins glanced up at the name, then back down. "Ms. Morrison," Harris said, his tone lowering, "we need to talk to you about Emily." The words were ordinary, but the way he said them was not. Lena felt her body lean forward, as if gravity had shifted. "What happened?" she asked. Harris drew a breath. "We received information earlier tonight that led us to a property in Long Island City." Lena's mouth went dry. "Nora's house," she said before she could stop herself. Harris's eyes flickered. "Yes." Silence stretched, thick and deliberate. "There was a disturbance reported," Harris continued. "During a search of the premises, something was discovered in the backyard." Lena's hands tightened around the edge of the table. She felt the pulse in her wrists. "Just tell me," she said. "Please." Harris held her gaze. A shallow grave. The room tilted. The table seemed to slide away from her, the edges blurring. She waited for the words to correct themselves, to rearrange into something less final. "And inside the grave," Harris said, "we found human remains." Lena's ears rang. She could hear her own breathing, loud and animal. "No," she whispered. "No, you didn't." "We believe," Harris said gently, "that the remains are Emily's." The name detonated. Emily, who left mugs in the sink and sang off-key in the shower. Emily, who texted heart emojis and argued passionately about nothing. Emily, who was supposed to call. Lena stood up so fast her chair toppled backward. "You're wrong," she said. "You have the wrong person. Emily was with Nora. She was safe." Collins spoke for the first time. "Ms. Morrison, we are still waiting on formal identification, but the evidence." "No," Lena said, louder now. "Nora wouldn't, she wouldn't hurt her. She's family." Harris's expression tightened. "Ms. Morrison, we need you to come with us. There are questions that need answering." Lena laughed once, a short, broken sound that surprised even her. Questions, she repeated. You come into my house at 2 in the morning and tell me my daughter is buried in a backyard, and you have questions? Harris stood. I'm very sorry for your loss. The words were practiced. They fell flat, useless. As they escorted her toward the door, Lena's gaze snagged on a photo by the light switch. Emily and Nora, arms slung around each other, smiling at something just outside the frame. Trust, frozen in glass. Lena reached out and turned the photo face down before stepping into the hallway. She did not yet know how deep the betrayal went, but she could already feel the ground giving way beneath her. Lena Morrison had not slept since the knock. Sleep, she would later realize, required a belief in continuity, that the world would remain recognizably intact when you closed your eyes and opened them again. That belief had been buried somewhere deeper than the backyard soil in Long Island City. Morning arrived without permission. The sky outside the precinct windows shifted from ink dark to a pale, indifferent gray. Lena sat in a hard plastic chair, her coat still on, hands clasped in her lap as if holding herself together required constant pressure. A paper cup of coffee sat untouched on the table beside her. It smelled burnt and wrong. Detective Harris had asked her the same questions twice already. Emily's habits. Her schedule. Her friendships. Each answer felt like a small betrayal, as if speaking about her daughter in the past tense might seal something irreversible. Emily was punctual, Lena said again, her voice hoarse. She worked at a design firm in Midtown. She never missed a shift without calling. And her relationship with Ms. Blake? Harris asked. They were close, Lena replied. Too close, maybe. But that's not a crime. Harris nodded, jotting notes she suspected he already knew by heart. Did Emily ever mention conflict between them? Lena shook her head. Then stopped. Memory, treacherous and newly sharpened, offered fragments she had dismissed before. She said Nora had been stressed, Lena said slowly. Something about money. About feeling left behind. Harris looked up. Left behind how? Emily was doing well, Lena said. She had just been promoted. She was talking about moving. Nora wasn't in the same place. The words tasted bitter. Lena had raised Emily alone, 2 jobs, late nights, a careful economy of love and exhaustion. She had taught her daughter kindness, loyalty, the value of standing by people who struggled. Now she wondered where that lesson had led her. After the questioning came the waiting. Forms. Signatures. A woman from victim services with a soft voice and pamphlets Lena did not read. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rang endlessly. By mid-morning, they allowed her to leave. The city outside felt obscene in its normalcy. People hurried past with coffee cups and earbuds, irritated by delays that now seemed laughably small. Lena stood on the sidewalk, the noise pressing in, and for a moment she forgot how to walk. A cab driver leaned out his window. You need a ride, ma'am? She nodded, because making decisions felt impossible. Her apartment greeted her with its familiar quiet. Emily's shoes still sat by the door, white sneakers smudged at the toe. Lena stared at them until her vision blurred. She bent down, touched the laces, then straightened quickly, as if caught doing something wrong. She moved through the rooms aimlessly, opening and closing doors. Emily's bedroom smelled faintly of citrus and laundry detergent. The bed was neatly made. Emily had always been disciplined about small things, even when the larger ones were uncertain. Lena sat on the edge of the mattress and pressed her face into her hands. The sound that came out of her did not feel like it belonged to a human being. Hours passed. Or minutes. Time had lost its shape. It was nearly noon when her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Nora Blake. For a moment, Lena thought she might throw the phone across the room. Instead, she answered. Lena, Nora said. Her voice cracked on the name. I just heard. I don't know what to say. Lena closed her eyes. Where is she asked. There was a pause, too long to be nothing. I don't understand. My daughter, Lena said. Where is Emily? Nora inhaled sharply. They told you. They told me they found her in your backyard. Silence. Then a small, strangled sound that might have been a sob. I didn't know, Nora said. I swear to you, Lena. I didn't know. Lena's grip tightened around the phone. You expect me to believe that my daughter was buried on your property and you had no idea? My house is old, Nora said quickly. The yard, there are parts one never go into. I rent out the basement sometimes. People come and go. Lena felt something cold settle in her chest. Who was staying there recently? Nora hesitated. Just a guy. A friend of a friend. It was temporary. What's his name? Another pause. I'd rather tell the police. You'll tell me, Lena said quietly. Nora exhaled. Ethan. Ethan Moore. The name meant nothing. Which somehow made it worse. Emily stayed with you last week, Lena said. It was not a question. Yes, Nora admitted. She needed space. We argued, but it wasn't serious. About what? Nora laughed weakly. You know Emily. She always wanted to fix people. She said I was sabotaging myself. And were you? Lena asked. Nora did not answer. I trusted you, Lena said. The words felt heavy, ancient. I trusted you with my child. I loved her, Nora said. Like a sister. Lena ended the call. She sat in the silence, the phone resting in her lap like a foreign object. Outside, a siren wailed and then faded. Trust, she realized, was not something that broke all at once. It eroded quietly, like soil loosened by unseen hands. By evening, Detective Harris called to confirm what Lena already knew in her bones. Dental records had verified the remains. Emily Morrison was dead. Lena stood at the window as the city lights came on, one by one, in different stars in a man-made sky. Somewhere in Long Island City, a patch of earth had held her daughter without permission. And somewhere between grief and fury, Lena felt something else begin to take shape. The need to know everything. By the third day, grief had sharpened into something more focused. Lena woke before dawn, not because she had rested, but because her mind refused to loosen its grip on the same unanswerable questions. She lay still in the half-light of her bedroom, staring at the ceiling where a faint water stain spread like a continent, and thought about Nora Blake. Thought about laughter shared over coffee. Thought about the way trust could feel solid until it wasn't. Nora had been in Lena's life for nearly 5 years. She'd come in as Emily's friend, brilliant, impulsive, full of restless ideas that never quite settled into plans. Over time, she became a fixture. Sunday dinners. Holidays when Nora claimed she had nowhere else to go. She had called Lena Mom once, half joking, and Lena had smiled, believing affection was a renewable resource. Now that memory curdled. Lena dressed carefully, as if composure were armor. Black coat, sensible shoes, hair pulled back. She did not cry. Crying felt indulgent, like surrender. By mid-morning, she was standing outside Nora's house. The place looked ordinary in a way that felt insulting. A narrow two-story building wedged between others like it, brick worn smooth by time. A small backyard fenced in by warped wooden slats, the kind of yard people forgot existed until they needed it. Police tape still clung to the side gate, fluttering slightly in the wind. Lena stood there longer than necessary, her breath fogging in the cold air. Somewhere beneath that ground, her daughter had been hidden. The thought pressed against her chest until it hurt to breathe. She rang the bell. It took a while for the door to open. When it did, Nora stood there, eyes swollen, hair pulled into a messy knot. She looked smaller than Lena remembered. I didn't think you'd come, Nora said. I didn't think you'd bury my daughter, Lena replied. Nora flinched. Please don't say it like that. How would you prefer I say it? Lena asked calmly. Gently? Nora stepped aside. Come in. The house smelled stale, like something closed up too long. The living room was cluttered, unopened mail, empty glasses, a blanket thrown over the couch. Evidence of a life paused mid-chaos. They sat opposite each other. No tea was offered. I've been talking to the police, Nora said. I've told them everything I know. That's what worries me, Lena replied. Nora folded her arms, defensive. You think I had something to do with this? I think, Lena said slowly, that you know more than you're saying. Nora's eyes darted toward the hallway, then back. Emily and I fought. You know that. People fight, Lena said. They don't disappear. She was staying here, Nora continued. She'd been crashing on the couch for a few nights. She wanted space from you. Lena's jaw tightened. She didn't tell me that. Nora shrugged. Emily didn't always tell you everything. No, Lena agreed. But she told you. Silence settled between them. What happened the night she died? Lena asked. Nora swallowed. We went out. Just the two of us. Drinks. We argued again. She left early. At what time? Around 10. Maybe 10:30. And you didn't follow up when she didn't come back? Nora hesitated. She'd stormed off before. I assumed she'd gone to cool down. Lena leaned forward. My daughter was found in your yard. You want me to believe she never came back? Nora's voice cracked. I went to bed. Alone? Another pause. No, Nora admitted. Ethan was there. The man from the basement. Yes. Did Emily know him? Nora nodded. They met once or twice. And did they get along? Nora hesitated too long. Ethan can be intense. Lena exhaled sharply. Did he hurt her? I don't know, Nora said quickly. I swear, Lena. If I had known. You knew something, Lena said. You always do. You always have. Nora's eyes filled with tears. I loved her. Then why didn't you call me when she didn't come home? Lena demanded. Why didn't you tell the police she was staying here? Nora looked down. Because I was afraid. Of what? Of being blamed, Nora whispered. The honesty hit harder than any lie. Lena stood. You were. Nora looked up, startled. What? You were afraid of being blamed, Lena said, voice steady, because some part of you knew you'd failed her. Nora opened her mouth, then closed it. As Lena moved toward the door, Nora spoke again. There's something else. Lena stopped. Emily had found out something, Nora said quietly. About me. About money. Lena turned. What kind of money? Nora rubbed her temples. I was in debt. More than I told anyone. Emily wanted me to come clean. She said secrets rot friendships from the inside. And did they? Lena asked. Nora looked at her, eyes shining with fear. I think someone heard us arguing that night. Who? Nora hesitated. Ethan. Lena nodded once. The pieces were beginning to shift. As she stepped outside, Lena felt the cold air bite her skin. She did not look back. The friend she thought she knew had been standing too close to the truth all along. And truth, Lena was learning, had a way of turning allies into suspects. Before Emily became a body, she had been an inconvenience. That realization struck Lena on the fourth day, sharp and unforgiving, as she sat at her kitchen table surrounded by printed emails, phone logs, and handwritten notes. The narrative had already begun to settle around her daughter's absence like dust on forgotten furniture. Emily had stormed off. Emily had needed space. Emily had probably gone to cool down. Everyone had an explanation. None of them had gone looking. Lena replayed the timeline again and again. Tuesday morning, a rushed phone call, Emily apologizing for being late to work, laughing about spilled coffee. Tuesday evening, silence. Wednesday, assumptions. Thursday, discovery. So much had happened in the gap between Tuesday and Thursday, yet for most people, nothing had happened at all. She picked up her phone and scrolled through Emily's messages. The last text to her read, "Call you later, red heart." The heart felt like a taunt now. Lena's fingers hovered over the screen, as if pressing hard enough might send a message backward through time. She stood abruptly and grabbed her coat. The design firm where Emily worked occupied the 7th floor of a glass building near Bryant Park. Lena had never been there before. Emily used to say it was too corporate for visits, which Lena had accepted without question. Now she wondered what else she had accepted. The receptionist looked startled when Lena introduced herself. Emily's mother? Yes, Lena said. I need to speak to whoever last saw her. A manager named Paul emerged from a conference room, his tie loosened, eyes rimmed with fatigue. He led Lena into his office and closed the door. We're all devastated, he began. When did you last see my daughter? Lena asked. Paul hesitated. Tuesday morning. She came in late. Did she seem upset? He frowned. She was distracted. Kept checking her phone. Did she leave early? Yes. Around 4. Did she say where she was going? Paul shook his head. She said she had something personal to deal with. Lena nodded. Personal. Another euphemism. As she left the building, Lena's phone buzzed. A message from an unfamiliar number. This is Jenna. Emily's friend from work. I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. There's something you should know. They met at a cafe 2 blocks away. Jenna was younger than Lena expected, her hands trembling as she wrapped them around a mug. Emily was worried, Jenna said. Not just about Nora. About someone else. Who? Lena asked. A man, Jenna replied. She didn't give a name. She said he made her uncomfortable. When? The week she disappeared. Lena felt a chill. Did she tell anyone else? I think she tried to, Jenna said. She went to HR once, but then she backed out. Said she didn't want drama. Drama. Lena almost laughed. That afternoon, Lena visited the precinct again. Detective Harris listened as she relayed what she'd learned, his expression tightening with each detail. We're looking closely at Ethan Moore, he said. He's been cooperative so far. So was Nora, Lena replied. Harris did not argue. By evening, Lena's phone began to ring with numbers she did not recognize. Old friends. Distant relatives. People who wanted to say something, anything, to feel useful. One woman said, "These things happen sometimes," as if Emily's death were a weather event. Lena hung up without responding. Later, alone in Emily's room, Lena opened her daughter's laptop. She hesitated only briefly before typing in the password, Emily's birthday, as predictable as it was sentimental. The desktop bloomed with files and folders. Work projects. Photos. A folder labeled personal. Inside, Lena found drafts of unsent emails. One addressed to Nora. One to someone named EM. And one to Lena. Mom, it began. If I don't tell you this in person, it's because I couldn't figure out how. Something feels wrong. I don't trust everyone I thought I did. Please don't be mad at me for keeping this from you. Lena's vision blurred. She read on. Emily wrote about the arguments. About overhearing conversations she wasn't meant to hear. About feeling watched in Nora's house. About a man in the basement who asked too many questions. If anything happens to me, Emily had typed, please don't let them say I just disappeared. Lena slammed the laptop shut. They already were. That night, Lena dreamed of doors that wouldn't open and phones that wouldn't ring. She woke gasping, her heart racing, the dark pressing in. The disappearance, she understood now, had been convenient. It had allowed people to look away. To explain. To postpone responsibility. But Emily had known better. And Lena would not let her daughter's story be softened into something palatable. By the time dawn crept in, pale and relentless, Lena had made a decision. She would no longer wait for answers. She would demand them. The first time Lena returned to Nora Blake's house, it had been cordoned off by tape and silence. The second time, it felt louder, haunted by what had already been unearthed. It was late afternoon when Detective Harris called and asked Lena to come. His voice carried a careful neutrality, but she heard the urgency beneath it. We're conducting a secondary search, he said. There are developments. Developments was a word that pretended discovery was orderly. Lena arrived to find the side gate open, the police tape gone, replaced by uniformed officers and men in coveralls moving with deliberate precision. The backyard looked smaller than she remembered, the patch of earth near the fence now an ugly rectangle of disturbed soil. The ground had been refilled, smoothed over, but it could not forget what it had held. Lena stopped at the edge of the patio, her breath shallow. That's where she was, she said. Harris nodded. Yes. Why here? Lena asked. Why not somewhere remote? Harris studied the yard. People hide things where they feel safe. The words settled heavily. A forensic technician approached Harris and spoke quietly. Harris's jaw tightened. What? Lena demanded. They found something else, Harris said. We need to show you. He led her toward the far corner of the yard, near a shed Lena had never noticed before. The door stood open. Inside, the smell of damp wood and metal hung thick. On a folding table lay several plastic bags, sealed and labeled. Are these? Lena began. Personal effects, Harris said. Recovered from beneath the shed floor. Lena's knees weakened. She gripped the doorframe. Harris opened one of the bags carefully and held it up. Inside was a scarf, soft gray wool, frayed at the edges. That's Emily's, Lena said instantly. She bought it last winter. She said it made her look responsible. Harris nodded grimly. Another bag contained a cracked phone case. Another, a bracelet Lena had given Emily for her 21st birthday. Each item was a confirmation, a hammer driving the truth deeper. She didn't just die here, Lena said. She was hidden. Yes, Harris replied. And someone took steps to make sure she wouldn't be found. Lena's hands curled into fists. Nora said she didn't know. Harris exhaled slowly. We've uncovered inconsistencies in Ms. Blake's statements. Lena laughed bitterly. You don't say. Harris gestured toward the house. May I? Inside, the atmosphere had shifted. The clutter had been catalogued, the chaos given numbers and tags. A uniformed officer stood guard near the basement door. That's where Ethan stayed, Lena said. Harris nodded. We executed a search warrant this morning. The basement was dim, the ceiling low. A mattress lay on the floor, sheets rumpled. Empty beer bottles lined one wall. Lena noticed a faint dark stain near the drain. What is that? She asked. Harris did not answer immediately. We're testing it. Lena swallowed hard. Was she killed here? We can't say for certain yet. But you think so? Harris met her gaze. Yes. They climbed back upstairs. Lena's eyes fell on the kitchen counter, where a small notebook lay open. That wasn't here before, she said. Harris picked it up. We found it in a drawer. The pages were filled with handwriting, tight, hurried. Names. Numbers. Dates. What is it? Lena asked. A ledger, Harris said. It appears Ms. Blake was tracking payments. Payments for what? Rent. Loans. Cash transactions. Lena felt a chill. Emily knew about this. Yes, Harris said. And she confronted Nora about it. Lena's mind raced. Debt. Secrets. A man in the basement. A fight. Where is Nora now? Lena asked. She's being questioned, Harris replied. Again. And Ethan? Harris's expression darkened. He left the state 2 days after Emily disappeared. Did anyone notice? Lena asked. Harris looked away. Not immediately. Of course not. Emily had already been explained away. As they stood in the living room, an officer entered, speaking in hushed tones to Harris. Lena watched Harris's face change. What now? She asked. Harris turned to her. We found surveillance footage from a neighboring property. And? It shows Emily entering this house the night she disappeared, Harris said. She never leaves. The room seemed to constrict. But that's not all, Harris continued. The footage also shows Nora in the yard early the next morning. Lena closed her eyes. Alone? No, Harris said. With someone else. Lena opened her eyes. Who? Harris hesitated. Ethan. The name landed with finality. She said she went to bed, Lena whispered. Yes, Harris said. She did. For a few hours. Lena felt something inside her fracture completely, not grief, not rage, but the last fragile belief that ignorance could excuse betrayal. Emily had not been buried by strangers. She had been buried by people who knew her. As Lena stepped back into the yard, the evening light casting long shadows over the soil, she understood something with terrible clarity. The ground had given up its secrets. Now the living would have to answer for them. By the time the charges were announced, the city had already chosen its villains. Headlines spoke in absolutes. Social media reduced complexity into outrage, shared and reshared until the story hardened into something unyielding. Nora Blake's face appeared everywhere, eyes downcast, hair unwashed, the image of guilt ready-made. Ethan Moore's name followed close behind, a shadowy accomplice who had fled and, in doing so, confirmed every suspicion. Lena watched none of it. She sat in her apartment, surrounded by silence and the careful order she maintained so she would not scream. The detectives had told her the basics. Ethan had been arrested in Pennsylvania after a traffic stop. Nora had been formally charged with obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence, and, pending further findings, accessory after the fact. Accessory. It was a word that tried to keep distance from the act itself. The first time Lena saw Nora again was in an interrogation room. Harris had asked if she wanted to be present. Lena had said yes without hesitation. Nora looked different. Smaller. The bravado stripped away, leaving behind someone brittle and frightened. She flinched when Lena entered. I didn't kill her, Nora said immediately. I need you to know that. Lena sat across from her. You helped bury her. Nora's eyes filled with tears. I panicked. You calculated, Lena replied. There's a difference. Harris remained silent, allowing the tension to stretch. Tell us what happened, he said finally. Nora took a shuddering breath. Emily and I argued that night. About the money. About Ethan. She said she was going to tell you. She said she'd go to the police if she had to. Lena's stomach twisted. And you let her walk out? Yes, Nora whispered. I thought she was bluffing. Nora's hands shook. I went to bed. I swear it. I woke up to noise downstairs. Yelling. From whom? Harris asked. Emily and Ethan. Lena's heart pounded. About what? Ethan said Emily had no right to interfere. He said she didn't understand how things worked. And what did Emily say? Lena asked. Nora closed her eyes. She said secrets rot people from the inside. The phrase felt like a knife turned in Lena's chest. What happened next? Harris pressed. There was a struggle, Nora said. I heard a thud. Then, silence. And you didn't call the police, Lena said. No, Nora sobbed. I went downstairs. Emily was on the floor. Ethan said it was an accident. Lena's voice was ice. You believed him. I wanted to, Nora said. I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. Harris leaned forward. And the burial? Nora wiped her face. Ethan told me we had to hide her. He said no one would believe it was an accident. He said I'd lose everything. Lena laughed softly, without humor. So you chose to lose my daughter instead. Nora flinched as if struck. The trial moved quickly, propelled by public hunger for resolution. Ethan's defense argued panic and unintended escalation. Nora's attorneys painted her as weak, manipulated, desperate. Lena sat through every session. Then came the twist. A forensic analyst took the stand and testified that Emily's injuries did not align with a single fall. There were marks consistent with restraint. Bruising that suggested prolonged struggle. The courtroom shifted. Ethan's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Another expert testified that the time of death did not match Nora's account. Lena's breath caught. What does that mean? She whispered to Harris. It means someone is lying, he replied. Under cross-examination, Ethan broke. His composure cracked, rage spilling through. She wouldn't stop, he shouted. She kept threatening us. She said she'd ruin everything. And did you? The prosecutor asked calmly. Ethan hesitated. I tried to scare her. With what? The prosecutor pressed. Ethan's silence was answer enough. Then came the final blow. The prosecution introduced evidence of a life insurance policy taken out months earlier, on Emily. Lena felt the room spin. Who is the beneficiary? The prosecutor asked. The name echoed through the courtroom. Nora Blake. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Nora stood, shaking. That's not, she asked me to. You were drowning in debt, the prosecutor continued. And suddenly, your friend takes out a policy naming you? Lena stared at Nora, betrayal crystallizing into something monstrous. You planned this, Lena said under her breath. Nora collapsed into sobs. I never meant for her to die. But intent, Lena knew now, had many forms. The verdicts came swiftly. Ethan was found guilty of second-degree murder. Nora was convicted as an accessory and of insurance fraud. As the gavel fell, Lena felt no relief. Justice, she realized, was not the same as healing. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Questions were shouted. Lena walked past them all. Her daughter's life had been reduced to a scandal, a spectacle. And beneath it all lay a truth too ugly to soften. Emily had been silenced not just by violence, but by betrayal wrapped in familiarity. The trial was over. The reckoning was not. The verdict did not close the case. It fractured the city around it. In the days that followed, New York seemed to split into competing versions of the same story. In one, justice had been served, a violent man punished, a complicit woman exposed. In the other, something far more uncomfortable lingered, questions about responsibility, about who had failed long before Emily Morrison's body was found beneath backyard soil. Lena felt those fractures everywhere. At the corner store, conversation stopped when she entered. On the subway, she caught people staring, their eyes flicking away when she noticed. Some offered condolences that felt sincere, others carried a curiosity she refused to satisfy. You're very strong, a woman told her once, squeezing her hand too tightly. Lena wondered if strength was simply what people called survival when they did not want to examine its cost. The community around Nora's house fared worse. Neighbors argued openly on stoops and sidewalks. Some insisted they had always sensed something was wrong. Others defended Nora fiercely, citing years of kindness, charity events, small favors that now felt like evidence in a character trial. She wasn't a monster, one man said loudly during a neighborhood meeting. She made mistakes. So did Emily, someone else replied. She involved herself where she didn't belong. The words traveled fast. They reached Lena by way of a voicemail left anonymously one night. Your daughter should have minded her business. Lena deleted the message without listening to the rest. The appeals began almost immediately. Ethan's attorneys filed motions citing procedural errors, disputing expert testimony. Nora's legal team argued coercion, diminished capacity, the classic vocabulary of mitigation. Lena attended the hearings when she could bear it. She sat behind the lawyers, behind the arguments, behind the insistence that there was always another angle to explore. In one hearing, Nora addressed the court directly. I loved Emily, she said, voice trembling. I never wanted any of this. Lena stared at the back of Nora's head, remembering dinners and laughter, remembering how love had once felt uncomplicated. Afterward, outside the courthouse, a reporter asked Lena if she believed Nora's remorse. Lena paused. Remorse isn't the same as accountability, she said, and walked away. The case seeped into public discourse. Opinion columns debated whether Nora had been unfairly vilified as a woman under pressure. Podcasts dissected Emily's choices, her boundaries, her supposed naivete. She trusted the wrong people, one commentator said. That's the real tragedy. Lena shut off the radio. The real tragedy, she knew, was how easily responsibility drifted away from those who held it. Weeks later, Lena received a letter from the district attorney's office. It detailed sentencing recommendations, legal language wrapping around the raw facts like gauze. Ethan faced decades. Nora faced less. Lena folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. That evening, she walked through her neighborhood as dusk settled, the city exhaling into night. She passed the playground where Emily had once insisted she was too old to swing but did anyway, laughing when Lena pushed too hard. A woman approached her near the gate. She looked familiar, one of Nora's neighbors. I just wanted to say, the woman began, hesitating, I'm sorry for your loss. But I don't think Nora meant for things to go that far. Lena met her gaze. Meaning isn't the measure, she replied gently. Action is. The woman nodded, chastened, and walked away. As sentencing approached, Lena was asked if she wished to give a statement. The victim impact statement was described to her as an opportunity, for closure, for voice, for catharsis. She struggled with the decision. Emily had hated public displays. She had believed in conversations, not performances. Lena wondered what honoring her meant now. The night before sentencing, Lena sat at her kitchen table with a blank page in front of her. She thought of Emily's unsent email. Of the words she had chosen carefully, trying to be brave without being cruel. Lena wrote until dawn. In court, when her turn came, the room fell quiet. I am not here to speak about anger, Lena began. Anger is easy. It flares and burns out. I am here to speak about trust. She looked at Ethan first. Then at Nora. My daughter trusted you with her safety, Lena said. With her honesty. With her life. You turned that trust into leverage, into fear, into silence. Nora wept openly. Ethan stared at the table. Emily believed that truth mattered, Lena continued. She believed that people could choose to do better, even when it was hard. You proved her wrong. The courtroom remained still. She is gone not because she made a mistake, Lena said, voice steady, but because others chose to protect themselves instead of protecting her. When Lena finished, she sat. Her hands did not shake. The sentences were handed down. Ethan received the maximum. Nora's sentence was significant, but lighter, shaped by cooperation and remorse. Outside, opinions reignited. Some called it fair. Others called it lenient. Lena felt none of it mattered. What mattered was that Emily's story had been told, not as a cautionary tale or a scandal, but as a testament to what happens when silence is mistaken for safety. The trial had ended. The division it revealed would take far longer to heal. After the courthouse emptied and the cameras drifted elsewhere, Lena Morrison returned to a life that no longer fit her. There was no ceremony for this part. No verdict to announce the beginning of what came next. The city resumed its rhythm with unforgiving efficiency, and Lena found herself standing still inside it, unsure how to move forward without betraying the weight of what had been lost. Emily's room remained unchanged for weeks. Lena told herself it was temporary, that she simply needed time. In truth, the room had become a border she was not ready to cross. Every object inside carried the risk of collapse. A jacket draped over the chair. A half-burned candle. A notebook filled with neat handwriting and unfinished thoughts. When Lena finally entered, she did so deliberately, as if stepping onto unstable ground. She sat on the bed and opened the notebook. Most of it was mundane, lists, reminders, sketches for projects. Then, near the back, Lena found a page titled Things Worth Telling the Truth About. It was not long. Fear. Money. People we love when they are wrong. Silence. Lena closed the notebook and pressed it to her chest. Emily had not been reckless. She had been principled. And principles, Lena now understood, often came at a cost. In the weeks that followed, letters continued to arrive. Some were apologies. Some were confessions from strangers who had chosen quiet over confrontation in their own lives and now wondered what that choice had protected, or destroyed. Lena responded to none of them. Instead, she began walking. Every morning, regardless of weather, she traced new routes through the city. Past the courthouse. Past Norris Street, which she avoided looking down. Past places where Emily had laughed, argued, lived. Walking became a way to stay present without being consumed. One afternoon, Lena received a letter from the correctional facility where Nora was being held. The envelope was thin, the handwriting familiar. Lena stared at it for a long time before opening it. "I don't expect forgiveness," Nora wrote. "I don't even know if I deserve to be heard. I just want you to know that I think about Emily every day. I know thinking isn't enough. I know it doesn't undo anything. But I am sorry." Lena folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer with the others. Forgiveness, she knew, was not something that could be demanded or rushed. It was not even something she was certain she wanted. What she wanted, she realized, was honesty, without caveats, without fear of discomfort. Months passed. The case faded from headlines. New scandals took its place. The city's attention moved on, as it always did. Lena did not. She began volunteering with a local advocacy group focused on workplace safety and whistleblower protections. At first, she worked quietly, filing papers, organizing meetings. Over time, she spoke more, her voice steady, measured, carrying the authority of someone who had learned what silence cost. She never used Emily's name publicly. Those who listened felt its presence anyway. One evening, after a small panel discussion, a young woman approached Lena. She looked nervous, clutching her bag tightly. "I almost didn't speak up at work," the woman said. "But I did. Because of what you said." Lena nodded. "It's rarely easy. But it matters," the woman said. "Yes," Lena replied. "It does." At home, Lena finally packed away Emily's things. Not to erase her, but to make room for memory without paralysis. She kept the notebook, the scarf, the bracelet, and the email Emily never sent. On the anniversary of Emily's death, Lena visited a small park near the river. She sat on a bench as the sun dipped low, painting the water gold. She did not pray. She spoke instead, quietly, to the air. "I'm listening," she said. "I always will be." The city hummed around her, alive and indifferent and beautiful all at once. Truth, Lena had learned, did not restore what was lost. It did not undo betrayal or soften grief into something manageable. But it survived. It lived in the choices people made when they could no longer pretend not to know. And in that survival, Lena found something fragile but real, not closure, not peace, but purpose. Emily's life had ended in betrayal. What endured was her refusal to be silent. And that, Lena knew, would outlast the soil, the courtroom, and the headlines that once tried to define her daughter's worth. The story did not end with justice. It continued, with truth.